where the attempted assassination was.
Well, tēnā koutou katoa, good morning everybody, afternoon actually, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to update you on the incident that occurred overnight in which the Royal New Zealand Navy ship HMNZS Manawanui grounded near the southern coast of Upolu in Samoa. It appears that the ship has grounded 1 nautical mile from shore on a reef where it was conducting a hydrographic survey. I have been advised that the New Zealand Defence Force worked closely with Maritime New Zealand's Rescue Coordination Centre, who coordinated rescue efforts. A Royal New Zealand Air Force P-8A Poseidon was also deployed to assist. Several nearby ships responded to the request for help, which at times meant rescuers battled currents, swells and winds that threatened to push life rafts and sea boats towards the reefs, and one case did actually push one of the life rafts onto the reef. I am very grateful for their efforts in coming to our aid when we needed them. I'm pleased to say that all crew and passengers are safe. I have spoken today with the captain of the ship, and she has assured me that all of the crew and the passengers on board displayed extremely good and positive and professional and bravery, but they also are in good spirits, which she thinks will possibly drop down a bit once the adrenaline starts to come out, but they are in amazing condition. I do acknowledge that this would have been really challenging for everybody on board, and I know that what has happened is going to take quite a bit of time for people to process. That said, the men and women of our Defence Force and Navy are all highly trained for all scenarios, and I'm very pleased that that training has paid off for them and they've all got off Manawanui safely. There will obviously be an inquiry, a court of inquiry, to establish exactly what caused this incident. I look forward to pinpointing the cause so that we can learn from it and avoid a repeat. The immediate focus right now is on mitigating the environmental impacts and salvaging what is left of the Manawanui, if that is possible. We hope that the environmental effects will be minimal, and we're working with relevant parties to establish what is needed and how we can assist. We recognise that this is an urgent situation which requires a rapid response, and we are doing everything possible to provide that. I'm now going to hand over to Chief of Navy, Rear Admiral Garen Golding, to give you some further details.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for joining us today. As you can imagine, this is a developing situation, and we are receiving updates as they come to hand from those on the ground. In terms of the current update, I can confirm at 6:40 a.m. today, the ship was listing heavily and smoke was visible from the ship. At 9 a.m, it was known to have capsized and is now below the surface. The NZDF is working with authorities to understand the implications, mitigate any environmental impacts and assess salvaging options. At this stage, the exact cause of the grounding is unknown, and this will need further investigation. I can confirm there were 75 people on board at the time the ship ran aground, including 7 civilians from scientific agencies and 4 foreign military personnel. I would like to commend the commanding officer's swift decision to evacuate the ship, a decision that likely prevented the loss of life. I would also like to acknowledge all those involved in how they handled this challenging situation. Evacuating a ship at night is an incredibly complex and dangerous task. The fact that everyone on board is now safe is a testament to the training and professionalism of our people. I also wish to acknowledge the rescue teams that worked throughout the night to ensure those on board the ship returned to land safely. The first people were rescued from the life rafts at 1 a.m. this morning. All personnel were rescued by 5:35 a.m. The efforts from all of those involved with the rescue are deserving of much praise given the conditions, so we thank you all. Over the coming days, the New Zealand Defence Force will work to assess options for what is the next step. The NZDF is intending to send an aircraft to Samoa with bring our people home. The first aircraft is expected to fly to Samoa today, The crew and passengers are being supported and accommodated in Samoa. Now that our people are safe, our next priority is to ensure any further impacts are mitigated. We are in dialogue with Maritime New Zealand and are drawing upon their expertise in the salvage space to minimise any environmental impacts from this incident. We will work with local Samoan authorities and other specialist agencies to ensure a cohesive approach. I'm very aware that we want answers, and I know that in time, following an investigation, we will have a full understanding of what occurred today. Our priority now that our people are safe is mitigating the environmental impacts, working closely with the Samoan government and with the expertise and support of Maritime New Zealand. Noting that this event is still developing, I'm happy to take questions and answer where I can. Thank you.
I appreciate it's early days, but are the indications mechanical failure or human error? What are the early indications you must be seeing?
It's too early to speculate on that. That's why we've stood up an investigation, and the investigation will reveal.
Biofuel was used in this vessel. Could that have contributed to something going wrong?
I know that it was a biofuel trial on a DG, but again, it's too early to speculate in regards to that.
What can you tell us about the terrain it was sailing in? Is it particularly rough? Is the reefs particularly shallow?
So it was conducting a survey task, and they completed that survey task, and that's when the ship ran aground on the reef. So the reefs were nearby the area they were surveying.
How familiar was the crew, particularly the captain, with the terrain, with the area that the ship was in?
The ship has been conducting a number of operations of this type. It's a survey ship. It conducts hydrographic survey. They recently have conducted them in other nations within the Pacific. So they are very familiar with conducting this type of activity.
Was this part of a longer program of work?
So the ship departed late September for a 2-month deployment. Their first task, and why the scientists were still on board, is they conducted an activity in Rao Island, supporting other government agencies. This was to be the second task of 4 major activities. It was to do a survey of the area in support of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that Samoa is hosting later in this month. And then following that, they were going to go to the Tokelau's and down to Niue.
What sort of injuries did the crew receive? We have seen pictures of somebody who looks like they have a broken leg or some kind of injury.
So we, 2 have been hospitalised or sought treatment in hospital. One with a dislocated shoulder, and another hurt their back again. So they're the 2 that were treated in hospital, and there's approximately 12 to 15 others that have minor cuts and abrasions and sore body parts, as you can imagine, walking across a reef. For some of them had to do that.
What time was the order to evacuate given?
So the ship ran aground at 18:46 last night, and the ship made attempts to get themselves off the reef. Those attempts were unsuccessful. Then the ship started to list, and at 19:52, the commanding officer made the decision to evacuate the ship.
It's still early days, but what are these indications for environmental damage, the impacts of this?
That is the focus of our next stage.
And how will you be looking to mitigate that? Have you sent any New Zealand Defence Force?
Yeah, so on the C-130 that's departing this afternoon, we have a dive team on board with salvage equipment, and that will be depth dependent, as well as a spill kit and some welfare support for the crew so they can do debriefs.
How difficult does it make it, given it's sunken under the surface now, how difficult does recovering the vessel become?
Very difficult. So it depends on the depth around that. So that's further down the line, our primary focus, now that our people are safe, is to mitigate any environmental impacts from the ship.
$100 million ship, in the worst case scenario that it can't be recovered, is this insured?
I'd assure all of them.
It's not something I've asked about. The primary concern today has been around the welfare of the crew and the passengers on board and the environmental side. But as for the money, I have not actually asked about that, but I'm sure things are in the usual way.
Minister, has the government been in touch with your government in Samoa yet?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I've spoken to the Prime Minister today, and he was going to be speaking with the acting Prime Minister of Samoa. As I understand, the Prime Minister of Samoa is overseas or unavailable, so he was going to be speaking. It should have already happened by now. And one of the things is, of course, to make sure that Maritime New Zealand, who has quite the kit when it comes to oil spills or any other spill, that they would need to, that they're on available should the Samoan government wish them to come and help.
Admiral, we've received some reports that some of the people who came off the boat were walking on the reef. Can you elaborate on that, confirm whether that was the case or not?
Yeah, sure. So all personnel evacuated the ship using 4 life rafts and 2 small boats organic to the ship. And they were attempting to move away from the reef so that they could be rescued by other vessels. Some excellent work by the Rescue Coordination Centre and local authorities in Samoa sent vectored ships to the area, and 4 arrived. Most of the personnel were evacuated from the life rafts onto those ships, but some made it to land via one of the small boats capsized on the reef, and then they walked to the land.
So, sorry, what capsized on the reef? Can you just clarify that?
So again, just to repeat, the ship, when they evacuated into 4 life rafts and 2 of their own rigid hull inflatable boats, the small boats, and they were used to keep the life rafts together and try and drag them out into an area of safety. The weather was extremely challenging, and when people were starting to be rescued from those life rafts, one of the small boats, flipped on a reef and they walked to land.
And is that when the injuries were sustained?
I don't have that information at hand.
But imagine this was in the dark, heavy seas. This was an extraordinary feat of keeping people together and keeping them safe. This is having spoken to the captain, this was a tremendous effort from everybody, and everyone stayed calm.
So
what can you tell us about working with Samoan authorities on this?
Sorry?
That was directed to Rear Admiral.
sorry.
What can you tell us about working with the Samoan authorities in this incident? It's obviously quite a large-scale operation.
Yes, in respects to the rescue?
Yes.
Yes, so the Rescue Coordination Centre liaised with the Samoan government, who were on-scene commanders looking after the vectoring of those vessels. So Nafuna, which is a Samoan patrol boat, was vectored to the scene along with the Queen Elizabeth, a small US civilian craft Double Down, and MS Lodbury, a cable laying platform. So they were coordinated onto that area and effected the rescue, and their efforts should be commended in that regard.
Could you talk us through a little bit more what this inquiry is going to look like, and I guess who could be involved, who could be going over? I know it's early days.
Yeah, it's early days. We're just right in the process of standing that up now, so we will be able to provide that information.
Is there any rough timeline you'd be looking to get results at all? Or?
At this stage, it's about looking after the crew and passengers, making sure that now that they're ashore that they're being looked after. The next process is the environmental concerns and mitigating that, and then the Court of Inquiry will get after what happened, how we can learn from it, and never repeat it.
Is there any connection yet, I know it's still early days, but between the evacuation and the fact that the ship caught fire, was there any kind of indication that there was something coming?
I don't have that information to
No,
hand.
We've heard from authorities over there that the vessel was seen drifting too close to the reef before the incident. Are you aware of those sorts of observations?
Again, it's rather than speculate, it's best to stand up the inquiry and get after the facts. Then we can learn more from it. So there will be information in coming days that we will share once we know a little bit more. But at the moment, what we're providing is the information that we have at hand at the moment.
We've got to be really careful not to speculate because we just don't know, do we?
Given what you do know, how fortunate is it that the crew all made it off?
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the commanding officer should be commended for the fact that she made the very difficult decision to evacuate the ship. It was in challenging conditions once it was stuck on the reef, and that decision and those efforts and the conduct of the crew to evacuate safely into the life rafts is an excellent job, and as the Minister mentioned, demonstrates the training and professionalism of our people.
And would she have made that decision on her own, or would she have been in contact with other services to help decide what to do?
We have a term called Mission Command. It's something that the CO is in the best place to make that decision at that time, and so she made that decision, and it was the right decision.
Is this the first time the Navy's lost a ship like this?
In peacetime, yes.
Peacetime.
As far as we know, it is.
As far as we know.
Yeah, it's a really sad day for the Navy.
Could you elaborate on your thoughts?
Well, it's really sad. I mean, you can see people here, they're not happy. It's really sad, but everyone came through, and that, I have to say, is down to the professionalism, the training, and their own courage.
It is a sad day, but is there also a level of embarrassment that we have lost a ship in peacetime?
I think it's really, I think it's really important to focus on the fact that this could have been a truly terrible day, but actually it's a bad day. And as for, we're very aware that these sorts of things can happen, and that's why we've got the Court of Inquiry, because we're not going to speculate on it. I could never, ever be embarrassed of it by our New Zealand Defence Force. They're excellent.
The problem is coming up, the ship is due there.
Look, they're undertaking a survey of an area that I understand had not been surveyed since 1987, and that means, and since then there have been hurricanes and a tsunami and all sorts of things. So this was work that needed to be done, and look, I think the main thing is nobody lost their lives, and that is actually something of a triumph, frankly, given the very, very difficult circumstances.
Are you able to give us just a bit more of an insight into what kind of surveying was going on so people can understand what was happening there?
I don't have all the information to hand. Normally with Manawanui, it has a multi-beam echo sounder, so it could run back and forth along some lines and gather the data using the multi-beam echo sounder. I would imagine that would be the primary survey, and it does have the ability to project smaller vessels into the shallower areas to do surveying as part of that as well.
It needed to be along the coastline to be
Right.
doing
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
Minister, what happens at a political level now? Has the Prime Minister been briefed?
Oh, yes, the Prime Minister's been fully briefed and has been a few times last night and today. The ODESC has been stood up this morning, and he's absolutely across the whole situation. He is incredibly supportive and very grateful that nobody died.
Are there similar vessels conducting similar missions currently in other areas? No.
Sorry, from...
Well, so this was obviously conducting surveying work.
Yep.
Are there other surveying ships from the New Zealand Defence Force out currently?
Not surveying, no.
And just in terms of the boat, I guess how much of a loss is it? Of course, it's amazing, no casualties, but how much of a loss is it for the fleet in terms of the boat cost?
Obviously, a small navy with 5 ships that we've got crewed at present, it is a significant loss from that perspective. But as we keep repeating, the fact that all our sailors and our passengers are safe and well is the most important thing for us at this time.
Awesome. And do you guys have a direct message for the personnel within the Duda?
Yeah, our thoughts are with them at this moment, and we're demonstrating that with providing them and their whānau the right support that they need to get them through this difficult time.
Rear Admiral, can you tell us the name of the captain?
We can, but
Yvonne Gray, Commander Yvonne Gray.
And what's your background and experience?
She is a very experienced commanding officer. She spent the last 2 years on board that ship executing outstanding work in command, both domestically in support of Cyclone Gabrielle, but as if you review what Manawanui's done of late, they've been up in Vanuatu doing explosive remnants of war. They were there at the back end of Tonga doing survey support. So she's very competent, professional and experienced mariner.
Rear Admiral, I'm assuming that a prepare to evacuate command would have been given. What is the time frame that happens? The crew are getting ready and then the command is given to leave the ship?
Yeah, it all depends on the circumstances. So they will go and do preparations for that, and they'll get ready, and then a decision will be made based on when the right time is. So they would have done preparations before they departed, if closing watertight integrity doors and hatches. Then they would have made sure that they knew which life raft station they were all going to and prepare all for that. And most importantly, look after the passengers that were on board.
And the red suits they put on, we noticed that the pictures of them arriving on the beach as they were in the red. When do they put on their evacuation gear and stuff like that?
That would be on the upper decks prior to hopping into the rafts and boats.
Back on potentially salvaging this ship, do you think we might need the assistance of, say, Australia to be able to carry out something like that?
I think we've had a discussion. Look, I don't think there's much chance of salvaging.
It all depends on the depth that it's in, and we don't know that just yet. So
we'll wait and see.
We'll wait and see.
But the thing is, too, is this is another example of why we work so closely in the South Pacific with each other, is because when we need help, other countries come to our aid, as we do when they need help. And we're always a long way away from everything, so we're very aware of it.
Yep.
You've spoken already with the with the Australians as well.
Our friends and partners have reached out and offered support to us. HMS Tamar, the offshore patrol vessel, was sailed from Fiji to provide support. They arrive tomorrow at lunchtime, so we got excellent support from our partners and friends.
And what does this mean for our defence capabilities, having a ship taken up?
Well, it's obviously not helpful when it comes to surveying and other work that it's been undertaking, but it is, I would remind you that we have the Defence Capability Plan that we're working on, and that obviously needs to now take this into account. And the fact is that we live in difficult times. We need to have the crew, we need to have the kit, and this is a ship that unfortunately is pretty much gone.
And that plan, when was that due to be?
It's going to be going through the cabinet process very soon. It's just a matter of making sure we get it right, and it will need to now be adjusted.
When was the ship last, what was its maintenance program in the lead up to it going away in September?
So it undertook a maintenance period, regular maintenance period prior to departing. Which is a normal thing in between deployments. So Manawanui had just come back from a deployment. They do a maintenance period and before they get them ready before they deploy again.
And had anything happened on the journey to raise concerns after the
Inquiry.
it's too early to speculate on anything.
We've got the inquiry. I think that's probably about it that we can give you. Thank you very much for coming over today. As you know, it's a sad day for the Navy, but thankfully we're all together.
Thank you.
Thank you.